Gold is something which has been relevant throughout the trading history. But the changing geopolitics and the rising trend of de-dollarization has made gold a strategic asset for every country. Having said that, a country like India, which has the world's second highest consumption of gold, there is an obvious curiosity. What we are doing to secure our gold supply? Well, in the recent months, NMDC or National Mineral Development Corporation of India has started gold mining in one of the biggest gold reserves of the world in Australia. And at the same time, to make the gold imports much easier, the government has significantly dropped the import duty on gold from 15% to 6%, a drop of 9%. So what's really happening in the supply chain of gold? In today's video, we'll understand what is NMDC's latest project. Next, how significant is this move for India? Thirdly, we'll understand how we can increase our gold production without domestic mines with Chinese case study. And finally, we'll track India's action plan to increase its domestic gold production. So let's begin. 6 November 2023, NMDC made an official press release on their website. It said NMDC commenced gold mining operation at Mount Celia in Western Australia through its subsidiary company Legacy Iron Ore Limited on Sunday. They further stated Legacy Mount Celia Gold Project will start ore mining at Blue Peter pits in the next 2 to 3 months, which is basically the first quarter of this year. So the first question that comes here is, how significant is this move for India? Look, Australia is estimated to have the biggest gold mine reserves of the world with around 10,000 tons of gold, of which 70% are located in the western region of Australia, the region where NMDC has acquired its gold mines. Acquiring gold mines in one of the biggest gold depositories of the world will secure India's sustainable supply of gold. But the overall picture is not as simple as it looks. Let's take a deeper look. This is the national consumption of gold country-wise in 2023. China roughly consumes 984 tons of gold. India on the second place 849 tons. USA 193 tons and Russia around 35 tons of gold. This consumption includes central bank purchases. But when we compare that with the total domestic production, China produces 355 tons of gold, Australia 270 tons, USA 237 tons, Russia 200 tons, but India less than 1 tons of gold. India has the biggest demand and supply gap. This means a huge forex reserves of our country is used to pay only for gold imports. In the year 2023-24, we have a trade deficit of around 238 billion US dollars, of which 45.54 billion US dollars was just paid for gold imports. This means around 20% of our trade deficit is because of gold imports. This will not only weaken our INR but also force us to take dependent geopolitical decisions. This technically means we cannot take any independent decisions which might affect our relationship with the gold supplying nations. This is a huge strategic loss for our country. But now the natural question is, how can we solve that? We don't have gold mines like other countries. So it's technically impossible for us to increase our domestic production in gold to reduce our imports, right? Well, what if I tell you that's not true? If you are really talking about the mines capacity, China has only 3.7% of the total mines capacity of the world, while Australia has 16%, Russia 13% and South Africa 9.6%. But in terms of production, China is producing 10% of the world's total gold, the highest in the world. So how China became the world's biggest producer of gold despite having a very minimal gold mines? Well, the answer goes back to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Look, mining and refining are the two major activities of gold production. So when China was expanding the Belt and Road project, they strategically invested in the gold mines within the BNR project and built the refining capacity back at home. They imported the raw materials, that is the gold ores, from these countries and refined them in China, increasing the production volume of their nation. Today, China is importing gold ores from 59 nations and regions, of which 11 of the nations fall under the BNR project. Look at this data. In the first quarter of 2024, China produced around 139 tons of gold, of which around 54 tons or 40% of the total production was just from the raw materials imported from other nations. And this value is increasing by 78% year on year. Bloody damn 78%. At this rate, it doesn't matter where's the gold getting mined in the world, a majority chunk will be refined in China, increasing their production capacity. So what can we learn from this? This Chinese case study explains it doesn't matter even if we don't have gold mines within our nation. We can still leverage our gold production by acquiring gold mines in other countries and establishing gold refineries within our nation. So now the story gets back to NMDC, our action plan to increase our gold production. NMDC has acquired a majority stake in the mines of Western Australia, which is an exemption in itself. Generally, other nations operating in Australia doesn't get a majority stake in the mines of Western Australia, but NMDC is an exemption. They got a majority stake that is more than 50% in the mines of Mount Celia. This is even a diplomatic win for our country. India can leverage this opportunity to quickly expand our mining capacity in one of the biggest gold reserves of the world. But like we discussed before, this can only be fruitful if we are expanding our domestic refining capacity. So the most relevant question that comes here is, what are we doing to improve our domestic refinery? In the year 2015, an Indian company called Rajesh Exports Limited had bought 100% shares of the world's largest precious metal refinery in Switzerland called Valcambi. Around 30% of world's total gold refining process goes through this company. This was a huge strategic move for our nation because of the two major reasons. Firstly, Switzerland is the biggest exporter of gold to both India and China. Secondly, this will bring a technological know-how to the world's finest gold refinery within our nation. This means a huge sum paid by India or China for gold imports is going to an Indian company which can leverage our national gold refining game. Secondly, if you look at the precious metal refining space of our country, we rank 4th in the world with MMTC PAMP India Private Limited being the largest in India. It has the capacity of around 300 to 320 tons of precious metal refining. But the majority of the refining companies in India have a capacity less than 50 tons. To boost this sector, in the latest budget, the government has reduced the import duty on gold doors from 14.35% to 5.35%, a reduction in 9%, which is a very significant move. Gold doors are basically alloy and impure gold which contains other metals like silver or platinum with various percentage of impurities. This reduction in the import duty will motivate the Indian companies to expand their production to increase their profitability. And at the same time, this also opens up a huge opportunity for the Indian entrepreneurs to innovate and enter the precious metal refining sector. And this is the place where I want to discuss why it is very important to have a very stable government. Because suppose a new government is formed every 5 years, the new government might not have a same approach to this industry. They might increase the import duty on the gold doors, again weakening our refining sector. And in the meanwhile, China will expand their Belt and Road Initiative, and it will be logically impossible for us to ever control the supply chain of gold. Let me know in the comment section what's your take on this. If you found anything valuable, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. The Pokaru Project at your service. See you again.